Hello and welcome back to SERA English. I'm so glad you are here with me today. Before we begin, I want to say something to every single person who has been listening to this podcast from the very beginning. You have made it to episode 10. That is not a small thing. That is 10 episodes of choosing to learn. 10 episodes of showing up. 10 episodes of saying, I am going to grow, even when it is hard, even when progress feels invisible, even when the world around you is loud and busy and life keeps getting in the way. You showed up. And that matters more than you know. Today we are going to talk about one of the most fascinating, controversial, and widely discussed people on the planet right now. His name is Elon Musk. And whether you admire him, question him, or simply find him impossible to ignore, one thing is absolutely certain. He is everywhere. He is the most Googled person in the world, the richest person alive, and someone whose story is so full of English lessons that I could honestly make 10 episodes just about him. But we're going to do it in one. And I promise you, by the time we are done today, you are going to walk away with new vocabulary, new idioms, a moral story, and a completely new way of thinking about failure, dreaming, and the English language itself. So let us begin. Part 1. Who is Elon Musk? And why does everyone have an opinion about him? Elon Musk was born in 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa. He was not the most popular child. He was quiet, bookish, and obsessed with reading. He once said that as a child, he read for 10 hours a day. By the age of 9, he had already finished the local library. He then started reading encyclopedias because he had nothing left to read. Now, I want to pause on that image for a moment. A 9-year-old child reading encyclopedias because he has finished the library. That tells you something about how he was wired. He was not just curious. He was insatiably curious. And that word, insatiable, is our very first vocabulary word today. Insatiable means impossible to satisfy. When you are insatiable, you always want more. You are never full. You never reach a point where you say, that is enough, I am done. An insatiable hunger for knowledge means you keep reading, keep asking, keep learning, no matter how much you already know. For example, she had an insatiable curiosity about other cultures, so she learned 5 languages. Or, his insatiable appetite for success drove him to work 20 hours a day. And here is how this connects to your English journey. I want you to become insatiable about the language. Not anxious, not obsessed in a stressful way, but genuinely hungry. The kind of hungry where you finish one podcast episode and want to listen to another. Where you read one English article and immediately look for the next one. That kind of insatiable appetite is what separates people who reach fluency from people who plateau. Elon Musk moved to Canada at the age of 17, alone with almost no money, and then made his way to the United States. He studied at the University of Pennsylvania and then began a PhD at Stanford University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. And then he quit. After just 2 days. He quit his PhD at Stanford after 2 days because he had an idea. The internet was just beginning, and he believed it was going to change everything. So he dropped out and started a company instead. That decision, leaving one of the world's top universities after 2 days to chase an idea, tells you everything about how Elon Musk thinks. Part 2. The moral story. The dreamer and the well. Before we go further into Musk's journey, I want to share a story with you. A short story, a quiet story, the kind that stays with you long after you have heard it. Once in a small and dusty village, there lived a young woman named Nadia. Nadia had a dream. She wanted to bring water to her village. Not just a little water. Enough water for every family, every field, every child who had ever gone thirsty in the dry season. The elders of the village laughed when she told them. They said, "Nadia, we have tried before. The ground here is too hard. The wells always collapse. You are wasting your time." But Nadia had read something in an old book. A method of digging that was different, deeper, reinforced with stones rather than wood. She believed it could work. She started digging. The first well collapsed after 3 weeks of work. She started again. The second well hit salt water and was useless. She started again. The third well, on the day she almost gave up, on the day the shovel slipped from her blistered hands and she sat down in the dirt and cried. The third well struck clean, cold, fresh water. Shot up like a small miracle. That well fed the village for 40 years. The moral of this story is not simply that persistence pays off. It is something deeper than that. It is that the people who keep going do not keep going because they are sure they will succeed. They keep going because the thing they are building matters too much to abandon. Nadia did not know the third well would work. She hoped. She tried. She failed twice. And she decided that the water was worth more than her comfort. That is not stubbornness. That is vision. And now let us take our vocabulary from this story. The word blistered means covered in blisters, painful bubbles on the skin caused by heat, friction, or hard physical work. Blistered hands means hands that have worked so hard they are raw and painful. But we also use this word metaphorically. A blistered soul, a blistered heart. These phrases suggest someone who has been through something painful and exhausting. The word abandon means to leave something or someone behind permanently, to give up on something completely without intending to return. When you abandon a project, you are not just pausing it. You are walking away for good. For example, she abandoned her original plan and started fresh. Or, learning a language is not something you should abandon just because progress feels slow. And the word vision means the ability to think about the future with imagination and wisdom. When we say someone has vision, we mean they can see something that does not yet exist, a possibility, a future reality, and they believe in it strongly enough to work toward it. For example, the architect had a clear vision for what the building would look like, even before a single brick was laid. Elon Musk, whatever you think of him, has always been a person of extraordinary vision. And his story is full of moments where that vision was tested in the most painful and public ways imaginable. Part 3. When everything fails in public. Let us talk about something that most successful people try to hide. Failure. Elon Musk has failed so publicly, so dramatically, and so many times that it would be impossible to pretend otherwise. And I think that honesty, that visible, undeniable history of failure, is actually one of the most important things about him for English learners to understand. In 2008, Elon Musk was in serious trouble. Tesla, the electric car company he had co-founded and invested in, was on the verge of bankruptcy. SpaceX, his rocket company, had just experienced its third failed launch in a row. 3 rockets, 3 explosions, 3 total failures. He had spent nearly every dollar he had on these 2 companies. He was reportedly sleeping on friends' couches. He was borrowing money to pay rent. That same year, he was going through a painful divorce. He was 37 years old, almost broke, publicly humiliated, and surrounded by people who were saying, "We told you so. We told you rockets and electric cars were impossible." And then, in September 2008, SpaceX launched its fourth rocket. And it worked. 3 months later, Tesla received a crucial investment that kept it alive. Within 10 years, both companies were worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Elon Musk became the richest person on Earth. Now, here is the vocabulary that comes from this part of the story. The word verge means the edge or the border of something, the point just before you cross into a new state. When we say someone is on the verge of something, we mean they are right at the boundary, about to cross it. On the verge of tears means about to cry. On the verge of giving up means one more thing will make you quit. On the verge of success means you are almost there. For example, after months of studying, she felt she was on the verge of finally understanding English grammar naturally. The word humiliated means made to feel ashamed and embarrassed, especially in front of other people. To be humiliated is deeply painful because it is public. Others see your failure or weakness. For example, he felt humiliated when he made a mistake in front of the whole class. But here's something important I want to say about humiliation and English learning. Many learners feel humiliated when they make a mistake in public. When they pronounce something wrong and someone corrects them. When they use the wrong word and people look confused. I want to tell you that feeling is normal. It is real. And it is temporary. Elon Musk was publicly humiliated by 3 exploding rockets in front of the entire world. He survived it. He came back. And you, with your mispronounced word, your grammatical slip, your hesitation mid-sentence, you will survive it too. And you will come back stronger. Part 4. The language of ambition. One of the things that makes Elon Musk so interesting from a language perspective is the way he speaks about his goals. He does not say, "I would like to improve electric vehicles." He says, "I want to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy." He does not say, "I hope to do something in space." He says, "My goal is to make humanity a multiplanetary species and ensure the long-term survival of human consciousness." The scale of his language matches the scale of his thinking. And that is deeply instructive for English learners. Because one of the things that limits people in a second language is not their grammar. It is their ambition in the language. They shrink. They say simpler things than they think because the vocabulary for the bigger thoughts is not yet there. So today I want to give you some vocabulary for big, ambitious thinking. The word accelerate means to go faster, or to make something happen more quickly than it would naturally. When we say something accelerates, it is speeding up. For example, reading English every day will accelerate your progress dramatically. Or, the new technology accelerated the spread of information around the world. Notice that accelerate is a verb we can use in both a physical and a metaphorical sense. Car accelerates, but so can progress, change, learning, and growth. The word transition means the process of changing from one state or condition to another. A transition is not an instant jump. It is a process. Takes time and movement. For example, the transition from student to professional can feel overwhelming at first. Or, learning to think in English rather than translating is a gradual transition, but it happens. The word sustainable means able to continue over a long time without causing damage or running out of resources. We use this word in environmental contexts, but also in personal and professional ones. For example, A sustainable study habit is one you can maintain for months and years without burning out. Or, she developed a sustainable routine of 30 minutes of English every single morning. For your language learning, I want you to aim for sustainable habits, not extreme ones. Not 3 hours a day that you maintain for 2 weeks and then collapse from exhaustion. Small, sustainable daily habits that compound over months and years. Part 5. 5 idioms from the world of big dreams. Let us talk idioms. These are 5 expressions that native English speakers use constantly when they talk about ambition, risk, failure, and success. Every single one of them applies to your English journey as much as to Elon Musk's life story. The first idiom is, shoot for the stars. This means to aim for something extremely ambitious, even if it seems impossible. Does not matter if you reach the stars. What matters is the direction you are pointing. For example, when it comes to your English, shoot for the stars. Aim for fluency. Aim for confidence. Aim for the ability to tell your story in a language that was not your first. And here is the beautiful irony. Elon Musk literally shoots rockets at the stars. The idiom and the reality of his life are one and the same. The second idiom is, back to square one. This means to return to the very beginning, to start again from nothing after a failure. When SpaceX's third rocket exploded, they went back to square one. They analyzed every component. They redesigned. They retested. For example, my phone died and I lost all my vocabulary notes. I had to go back to square one with that chapter. Or don't be afraid of going back to square one. Sometimes starting fresh is the fastest way forward. The third idiom is, push the envelope. This means to go beyond the usual limits. To try things that have not been tried before. To test the edges of what is possible. The phrase originally came from aviation. The flight envelope is the range of safe operating conditions for an aircraft. Pushing the envelope means flying at the very edge of those conditions. For example, good writers push the envelope. They experiment with language rather than always playing it safe. For English learners, push the envelope in conversation. Use the new word even if you are not sure. Try the more complex sentence structure. Experiment. Test the edges of your current ability. The fourth idiom is, weather the storm. This means to survive a difficult period without giving up. When you weather a storm, you do not escape it. You do not avoid it. You go through it and you come out the other side still standing. For example, in 2008, Musk had to weather the storm of bankruptcy, personal failure, and public ridicule, and he came out the other side. Or, there will be weeks in your English journey where nothing makes sense and you feel stuck. Weather the storm. Keep going. The fifth idiom is, light at the end of the tunnel. This is one of the most beautiful idioms in English. It means a sign that a difficult situation is finally coming to an end. When you are in a tunnel, everything is dark. But eventually, if you keep walking, you see a small point of light ahead. That is the end. That is the exit. For example, after 6 months of struggling with English pronunciation, she finally began to feel like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Or, when SpaceX's fourth rocket launched successfully, it was the light at the end of the tunnel after 3 years of failure. Part 6. What Musk teaches us about learning. Now I want to connect Elon Musk's philosophy directly to the way you learn English. because I believe there are 3 lessons from his life that apply perfectly to anyone trying to master language. The first lesson is first principles thinking. Elon Musk is famous for something called first principles thinking. It is a way of approaching problems where instead of building on what others have done, you break the problem down to its most fundamental parts and reason up from there. For example, when SpaceX was founded, the price of rockets was enormous. Most people said rockets are expensive, that is just how it is. Musk said, what are rockets actually made of? Aluminum, steel, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. He researched the cost of those raw materials. He found that the materials cost roughly 2% of what aerospace companies were charging. He realized that the cost of rockets was not a law of nature. It was an assumption. And once you break down an assumption, you can challenge it. For English learners, I want you to apply this same thinking. Instead of accepting that you are bad at English or that learning takes a very long time, break it down to first principles. What is language? It is patterns. What are patterns? They are things the brain can recognize and store. How does the brain store patterns? Through repeated, meaningful exposure. So, if you give your brain repeated, meaningful exposure to English patterns, it will store them. That is not optimism. That is neuroscience. Our vocabulary word here is assumption. An assumption is something you believe to be true without checking whether it actually is. We act on assumptions all the time. Some of them are helpful. Many of them are false. For example, I am too old to learn English fluently is an assumption, not a fact. Or, good English speakers are born, not made. That is an assumption and it is wrong. Examine your assumptions about your own English learning. You may be carrying false beliefs that are quietly limiting your progress. The second lesson is embrace iteration. In engineering, iteration means making a version, testing it, finding what does not work, improving it, and then testing again. SpaceX's rockets failed 3 times before the 4th one worked. Each failure was information. Each explosion told the engineer something important. The failure was not wasted. It was data. Iteration means repeating a process multiple times, each time improving on the last attempt. It is the foundation of all engineering, all design. And, though most people do not realize it, all language learning. Every time you speak English and make a mistake, that is an iteration. Every time you write something and get corrected, that is an iteration. Every time you misunderstand a word and then look it up, that is an iteration. You are not failing. You are iterating. You are getting better in the only way that actually works. Through repeated, imperfect action followed by adjustment. The third lesson is ignore the timeline. Elon Musk is famous for announcing deadlines that he spectacularly fails to meet. Tesla was supposed to have a fully self-driving car by 2018. Humans were supposed to be on Mars by 2022. These timelines came and went. And people love to criticize him for it. But here is what I notice. The car is getting closer to self-driving. The rockets are getting more capable every year. The direction is right even when the timeline is wrong. For your English, stop giving yourself arbitrary deadlines. I will be fluent by December. I will pass this test by March. Sometimes those goals help. But sometimes they just make you feel like a failure for not hitting an impossible schedule. Instead, focus on the direction. Am I understanding more than I did 3 months ago? Am I speaking with less hesitation than I was 6 months ago? Am I reading faster than last year? If the answers are yes, you are on the right path. The timeline matters far less than the direction. Part 7. The English of Space. I want to do something a little different in this section. Because Elon Musk's companies have introduced an entirely new set of English vocabulary into everyday conversation. Words that used to belong only to scientists and engineers are now used by millions of ordinary people around the world. And knowing these words will make you sound educated, informed, and genuinely fluent. The word launch originally means to send something forward, especially into the air or into water. We launch rockets. We launch boats. But in modern English, we also launch products, businesses, websites, careers, and ideas. For example, she launched her English learning channel with just one microphone and a lot of courage. Or, the company launched its new app on the same day as its biggest competitor. The word orbit means the curved path that an object takes around another object in space, held there by gravity. The moon orbits the Earth. But we also use orbit metaphorically. For example, she moved in different social orbits. Her work friends and her childhood friends rarely mixed. Or, after years of working in small companies, he finally entered the orbit of the tech industry's biggest players. The word trajectory means the curved path of something moving through space. But in everyday English, trajectory is used constantly to describe the direction and path of someone's life, career, or progress. For example, her career trajectory changed completely after she learned to speak English confidently. Or, if you keep studying at this pace, your trajectory will take you to fluency within a year. This is one of my favorite vocabulary words for English learners, because it implies movement and direction. Your language learning has a trajectory right now. Where is it pointing? Part 8. Speaking about failure without shame. One of the things I admire most about Elon Musk, whatever else one might think of him, is the way he talks about failure. He does not hide it. He does not minimize it. He talks about the 2008 period of his life openly. He has said in interviews that he thought he had failed, that he thought everything was over. And there is something powerful about watching a person of enormous success say openly, "I failed. I was scared. I thought it was the end." Because in many cultures, failure is shameful. It is something to be hidden, apologized for, explained away. And for English learners, this shame shows up powerfully around language mistakes. I want you to hear this clearly. Your English mistakes are not failures. They are attempts. Every mispronounced word is you trying. Every grammatical error is your brain reaching for something it has not yet fully grasped. And that reaching is what growth looks like from the inside. The word minimize means to make something seem smaller or less important than it really is. When we minimize our failures, we pretend they were not really that bad or that they did not really matter. But Musk does the opposite, he owns them. For example, she refused to minimize her mistakes. She looked at them clearly, learned from them, and moved on. The word transparent means open and honest, not hiding anything. When someone is transparent about their failures and struggles, they are showing you the full picture, not just the edited, polished version. For example, being transparent about your level in English means you can ask for the right help and practice at the right level. Or, the best teachers are transparent about what they know and what they do not know. And our final idiom for today. Own it. To own something means to take full responsibility for it. Your actions, your mistakes, your choices, without making excuses or blaming others. When you own your mistakes, you take power over them. They stop being things that happen to you and start being things you can learn from. For example, she made a mistake in front of her whole team. Instead of hiding it, she owned it, apologized, and fixed it. Her colleagues respected her more for it. For English learners. Own your level. Own your mistakes. Own your accent. Own the messy, imperfect, beautiful process of learning. Because that ownership is what turns a struggling learner into a confident speaker. Part 9. Review and close. We have covered so much ground together today. Let me bring it all together for you before we close. Our vocabulary words for episode 10 were insatiable, impossible to satisfy, always wanting more, abandon, to leave or give up on something permanently, vision, the ability to imagine and believe in a future that does not yet exist, verge, the edge or point just before something happens, humiliated, made to feel ashamed and embarrassed publicly. Accelerate, to move faster or to make something happen more quickly. Transition, the process of changing from one state to another. Sustainable, able to continue over a long period without causing damage. Assumption, a belief accepted as true without being checked or proven. Iteration, repeating a process and improving it each time. Minimize, to make something seem smaller or less important than it is. Transparent, open, honest, not hiding anything. Trajectory, the path and direction of something moving through space or through life. Our idioms for today were: shoot for the stars, aim for something enormously ambitious, back to square one, return to the very beginning and start again, push the envelope, go beyond the usual limits, test what is possible, weather the storm, survive a difficult period without giving up, light at the end of the tunnel, a sign that a difficult situation is finally ending. Oniti, take full responsibility for your actions and mistakes without making excuses. That is 13 vocabulary words and 6 idioms. 19 new tools in your English toolbox. Use them. Write them. Speak them. Let them become yours. Now, before I let you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. Elon Musk once said something that I have thought about many times since I first heard it. He said, "When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." I think about that sentence when I think about every single person learning English right now. Every person who is sitting somewhere in the world, in a small flat, in a noisy office, in a crowded commute, with earphones in, listening to a podcast in a language that is not their first, repeating words under their breath, building a new version of themselves one episode at a time. The odds are not always easy. Life is busy. Fluency takes time. Some days you feel like you are going nowhere. But you keep coming back. You keep pressing play. You keep choosing this. That is not small. That is extraordinary. The third well will strike water. The fourth rocket will reach orbit. Your English will reach the place you have always dreamed it could go. Stay insatiable. Keep pushing the envelope. Weather every storm. And I will see you in episode 11. This has been SERA English. Thank you so much for being here with me today.